Hey everybody, Kevin P. McAuliffe here, and I'm one of the senior editors at MyJo in Toronto, and I am back again with another Digital Juice tutorial, and this time we're going to take a look at getting started with Ready2Go for Adobe's After Effects. You know, one question that I see posted on the Digital Juice forums a lot is, are we able to take the elements from, and in this case I'll use the editor's toolkit for example, are we able to take these elements and are we able to edit them and change them and do things that we want to do with them? And in many cases the answer is no. But let me just tell you, with Ready2Go for Adobe's After Effects, you now can get inside the head of a Digital Juice artist who's creating these elements, and you can take what they've created and use it the way that it is, or take it and alter it an infinite number of ways to create a new look every time with these fantastic elements. Now I've broken this tutorial up into two parts, and in the first part we're going to take a look at the juicer and working inside the juicer to take these Ready2Go elements and get them out of the juicer and into After Effects to work with them. In part two we're going to take a look at After Effects specifically and what's going to happen once you have these elements out of the juicer and you're ready to start working with them. Okay, so as always, the first thing that I always start all of my getting started with tutorials is I remind everybody that if you haven't downloaded the most recent version of the juicer, you need to head on over to the Digital Juice website and download it. And as of this recording, the most recent version of the juicer is Juicer 3.81 build 108. And it's a free download for Windows, for Mac, and for Mac Snow Leopard users. Okay, so I'm going to hide out of Firefox and I'm going to Command Tab into the juicer. Now, obviously the first step of the process is to install Ready2Go for After Effects Volume 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that you have your disk popped into your computer, and as you can see I have mine right here on the desktop, and I'll just come back into the juicer here, and I'm going to come up to File, I'm going to come down to Install Products, and you're going to see that right away the juicer is going to recognize that I have Ready2Go Volume 1 for Adobe's After Effects inside the drive. What I'm going to do is say Install. It's going to tell me right now that I already have it installed, and it's going to ask me if I want to reinstall, and for the purposes of showing you this, I'm going to say OK. And what I'm going to do now is simply enter my email address. I'm going to enter my activation key, and I'm simply going to say Activate. I'm now going to be brought up to the license window. I'm going to make sure that I read everything that's in here. I'm going to accept the terms, and I'm going to say Continue. And now I'm going to be brought to the Ready2Go for AE installation wizard. And as you can see, we don't have very many options here. You can see that our only option is to install everything. But you can see that only 5 gigabytes of hard drive space is required for this, so not that much space is going to be taken up on your drive. All I would do then is simply say Install, and in a matter of minutes, I'm going to have Ready2Go for AE ready to go. So what I'm going to do instead here is I'm just going to click cancel, because like I said, I already have it installed, and you can see that the standard juicer configuration for Ready2Go for After Effects is to start out on the templates page, because in most cases that is where you're going to want to start out. This is where you can navigate through and you can take a look at all of the templates that come standard inside Ready2Go for After Effects Volume 1. And obviously if we want to preview any of these elements, I can simply come over to Memory Album HD, for example. I can simply click on it, and you can see now up at the top I have a preview of this right inside the juicer. I can just let it play. And if I take a look here in the upper right hand corner, you can see where I am in the timeline, and you can see how long this element is on its standard settings. Now obviously once I get it into After Effects, I can alter it to be whatever speed I want it to be. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to navigate over here, and I'm just going to hit pause here. And you can see that what's happening here is that I have the HD version and the SD version beside each other, because right now the juicer is set to show me everything that is included inside Ready2Go for After Effects Volume 1. So what if I wanted to narrow this search down and I only wanted to see certain elements? Well, that's where we're going to get into using filter mode. So let's talk about filter mode for a second. I'm just going to navigate all the way back up here to the top. And much like many of the other Digital Juice products, filter mode is a fantastic way to narrow down your search so that you can find what you need quickly and easily. So I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say that I only work in SD. I never work in HD, so I'm not going to want to see any of the HD elements. No problem. All I have to do is simply come over to Resolution, click on the drop down. I can simply select SD, and as soon as I do, the juicer is going to update and only show me all of the SD elements that are included in Ready2Go Volume 1. Now, if I did happen to have Ready2Go for Adobe's After Effects Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, What I can also do is I can search by product. You'll see that because I only have one volume installed, I only have one option. So in this case, I'm not going to be checking anything. But if I had multiple collections, I could come in and narrow down my search even more right here. Now I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to drop down the set, and you can see that in here I have the names of all of the files inside Ready2Go. What I could do now is say, okay, well, I'm just going to take a look at board of directors, flame frames. I'm going to look at focus fan, mass marble, and maybe special report. And you can see again that I'm only looking at the SD element. So if suddenly the client said, well, wait a minute, maybe I want to do this in HD. Okay, no problem. Let's take a look at the HD ones instead. There we go. There's HD, all ready to go. Now, one thing that I should point out is that you can see here that I have Special Report 1 HD underneath the actual animation, and the same with masked marble, flame frames, and etc. Now, in many cases, the juicer might not be set up to look at the elements like that. Now, how do you change that so you can customize this window right here? Well, it's very simple. I'm going to navigate up here to the drop down, and I'm going to simply say Customize. And you can see now that I can actually get in and customize a few parameters in here, from the size of the thumbnails to the number of thumbnails across that I can see, to the gap around the thumbnails, and I can even toggle on and off the file name. And I like to keep mine on just because I find it easier to read. And you can see that I can show the icons only over mouse move. So I could just say, let's turn that off. And as soon as I say OK, you're going to see the icons disappear until I bring the mouse over top of it. Now for me, I like to have all the icons sitting there so that I can access them quickly. So what I'm going to do is just come back to Customize, and I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to say OK. So since we're talking about the icons, let's talk about them a little bit more in depth. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this off so that we can see all of the elements in here. And I can just say, show me everything. And we can minimize all of these here. And you're going to notice in the main template window that we really only see two icons. One looks like the After Effects logo. And I'm going to scroll down here because there's another icon here that looks like a folder. You're also going to notice up here we have a little checkbox that says Show Sets as Folders. Now what does that mean? Well, if I come down to this folder and I double click on it, you're going to see that we actually have two animations for Special Report. So if I click on one, you can see a very unique looking animation. And then if I come over and click on the other one, you'll see that we have a very different look. Same type of thing, but nice bold red color. And I'll just pause this here for 1 second. Now I'm just going to come back up a level because I was talking about the checkbox that says Show Sets as Folders. So let me just come down, and you'll see now that if I turn that off, what's going to happen is the juicer is going to display each one of those inside the template window instead of giving me that little folder to double click on. To be perfectly honest, I prefer working with the folder method, but you can work with this however you like. That's the great thing with the juicer. Very flexible, so you can work how you want to work. Okay, so let me just turn Show Sets as Folders back on. So I've got my little folder icons again. And let's talk about this AE icon here, because believe it or not, that AE icon is how you're going to export most of the elements from the juicer for Ready2Go for After Effects. Now you can still do it the standard way, which is to take the element and drag it over here into the batch panel. And you'll see that as soon as it does, I now have a new window that says Collect Files. But what I'm going to do is just cancel that, because you don't need to go to all the trouble of dragging it over here. You can simply click on the After Effects icon, and you're going to notice the very first option is Collect Files. So you can see a workflow enhancement just makes your job a lot easier to get in there and just simply say Collect Files. Now obviously Collect Files is fairly self-explanatory. It works much the same as it does in After Effects. If I was to say Collect Files, and I was to come up here and I'm going to select, let's select 1920 by 1080 2397. And I'm just going to send this onto the desktop, which it's already going to, and I'm going to say Collect Now. What's going to happen is the juicer is going to take all of these elements from where they were installed to on my hard drive, and we'll just pause this animation here. It's going to move them over into a folder on my desktop. You'll see I have the project here, and I have all of the elements that go with it. Now one thing that you are going to notice right away is that I have two copies of the project. Reason being is that obviously in this case, if we were to double click on this, we don't want to alter this file, because by altering this file, we're obviously overwriting the file that's here. Now the one great thing with working with the Collect Files method of working is that you're never going to be overwriting the original After Effects project that was originally copied onto your computer. This way, you're always going to have the original as a backup. If for some reason you got in and you altered the original one, you'd have to reinstall Ready2Go to put things back the way that they were originally. Now you're going to notice right away that we do have some elements in here. We have some elements from the Motion Designer's Toolkit Volume 1, some filigrees and scrolls. Now you can see that this is a black element over top of a black background so that we can't see anything, but that's okay. You're also going to notice that we have some elements in here that say filigrees and scrolls A, PRX, and filigrees and scrolls A. These PRX files are actually proxy files. Basically what they're used for is for you to get quick, fast previews when you're working in After Effects, but when you're actually going to do your render, you're going to use the full-size file. You can see the file size difference goes from less than a megabyte to almost 9 megabytes. So you can see that depending on the speed of your computer, working with proxies is going to help ease the congestion of working with some files that can end up becoming quite large. You'll also notice that as I come down, we do have some texture elements that were obviously used in the creation of the project, but probably most important with this project is the fonts, and we all know that that can be a big pain when you're working with someone else's project. If someone gives you a project or they email you a project, you go to open it, the first thing After Effects says is, oh, by the way, you don't have this font. Well, guess what? Every template that comes with Ready2Go for After Effects also comes with the fonts that you see in the original animations. So you can use those fonts, you can change them to your own, you can work however you want. It's fantastic. Okay, so I'm just going to close this up for 1 second because I want to come back into the juicer, and I just want to show you back here at the After Effects icon that we do have a few more options in here. So I'm going to click on the AE icon, and I'm going to come down to the next option, which is Send Project to After Effects. Now this is a great way to work with the projects without having to collect anything, just to work with the files that were installed originally when you did the installation. And you'll see we have a couple of options in here. We can open it as a new project, we can import it into the current project, or last but of course probably most important, we can set up our After Effects location. Now obviously that's fairly self-explanatory. I've already set up my After Effects location, so I don't need to do that, but if this is your first time working with Ready2Go for After Effects, make sure you set up that location first. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have After Effects open, and what I want to do is I'm going to import this into the current project. So all I'm simply going to do is click on it. It's going to ask me, what do I want the source to be? So I'm going to select 1920 by 1080, 2397, and I'm going to say Send Now. And what I'm going to do now is Command Tab into After Effects, and you'll see that I have my little beach ball. And what's happening is that the juicer is sending that project to After Effects just like that, and I can now drop down and double click on it, and believe it or not, it's ready to be worked with in After Effects right away. So you can see you don't even need to get into copying stuff, but the thing that's important to keep in mind is that by working the way that I worked, I now have an untitled project that I can save out as something different, so I'm not overwriting the original project. That's what you always have to keep in mind. Don't get in and alter any of the original files, because like I said, once you do, if you want to go back to the way they were, you will have to reinstall them. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to Command Tab back into the juicer for 1 second, and let's just pause that here. I'm going to come back to my AE dropdown. I'm going to send to After Effects, and let's open this as a new project. So I'm just going to say Open as New Project, and we'll just do it as 1280 by 720, 2997. I'll say OK. It's going to ask me to save this project, so I'll just say Untitled Project is fine. You'll see now that it's going to open the new project, and just like that, boom, there it is, ready to be worked with. So you can see how quickly and easily you can get in and start working with these fantastic elements. So let's go back into the juicer here just for 1 second. I'll just pause this here. I'm going to come back to my drop down. Now, I was talking about not editing the original elements, and this is where things can get tricky. If I come down and I say reveal this project in the Finder, I can say show it to me. It's going to say, well, which one do you want to see? And I'll say I want to see this one. I'm going to say go, and you'll see now that I'm in the original project that was installed when I installed Ready2Go for After Effects. So if I hold Command on the Mac, I can click on the drop down, and you can see now that I can see that it's located on my Marzipan hard drive inside Digital Juice, inside Catalog, inside Ready2Go AE Volume 1, and it's called Positive Graffiti. You'll also see that these icons here, and if I show them as icons, are actually aliases. They're aliases to the original projects inside this folder. If I edit these, there's no way that I can get the changes back, again, like I said, unless I reinstall. So don't mess around with this unless you absolutely are sure of what you're doing. Okay, so let's get back into the juicer here because I do want to show you a couple more things. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about the templates themselves, which are, again, fantastic. But obviously, inside these templates, there are a lot of elements that were used to create each one of them. And the great thing is that you now have access to all of these individual elements as well. So you can get in and mix and match things however you like. And you can do that simply by coming over to, first of all, the Animated Elements tab. And you'll see in here that we have elements from the Motion Designer's Toolkits. You'll see that if I scroll down, we have a lot of different options as to stuff that we can work with. And you'll see that if I come up here, I can simply come over to the little film icon and click on it. Let's click on the film icon, and you can see that we have the option to add it to the batch, to reveal in Finder. We can even send it right to After Effects, or we can open it in an external editor if we wanted to. Now, for more information about getting elements from the Motion Designer's Toolkit out of the juicer, you can check out my Getting Started video on the Motion Designer's Toolkit on DJTV. So I'm not going to get too much into that right now, but just be aware of the fact that you do have the option of working and using all of these elements in any project that you happen to be working on. Now I'm just going to jump over the fonts for 1 second because, again, we have animated elements. We also have still elements as well, such as textures like bricks. We have still elements from the Motion Designer's Toolkit as well, again, that you can get in and you can export from the juicer to use in one of your Ready2Go templates or in any project you happen to be working on. Now again, if you want more information, check out the Getting Started with the Motion Designer's Toolkit. Now I wanted to leave fonts till the end because there's actually something really cool with fonts that I want to show you. Now, like I mentioned before, the great thing with all these projects is not only do you get the project and all of the elements that go with it, you also get the fonts. Now you saw that when I collected that project that it created a folder called fonts. Because I'm working on a Mac, what I could then do is I could go into Font Book, I could open Font Book, I could drag the font in there, and it's a couple steps to do it. But the folks at Digital Juice have taken that into consideration, and you'll see now that if I click on fonts, I can now simply scroll down and take a look at all the fonts that were used inside all of the different templates. So let's say, for argument's sake, I wanted to take, let's take this font right here. And what I want to do is I just want to take a look at it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the lower right-hand corner, and you'll see we have a little arrow icon, and I'm going to click on it. And as soon as I click on it, you're going to notice that Font Book has now opened this font, LP Bambus, to show it to me. And the great thing that I can do now is simply say, Install Font. And boom, there it is, installed, just like that, ready to work with. So what I did was, as soon as I installed Ready2Go for After Effects, I quickly jumped over to the Fonts tab and I went and I installed each one of the fonts, so that way I don't need to remember to do it every time I send a project from the juicer to After Effects. Okay, so this wraps up part 1 of getting started with Ready2Go for After Effects. And like I said, in part 2, we're going to take a look at working with one of these projects once we've exported it from the juicer inside of After Effects. So if you have any questions, comments, or tutorial requests, you can head on over and post them in the Digital Juice forums. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.